So today we're going to be talking about adhesives and how to pick the best adhesive for you. Each lash artist, whatever works for your friend or another lash artist, does not necessarily apply for you. So I'm actually going to teach you 3 criteria that will hopefully help you in picking out an adhesive that will be appropriate for you as a lash artist. So I'm Galina from Thousand Lashes. If you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button in order to get more similar content like this from us once a week. We're going to be posting, so be sure to turn your notifications on if you haven't already. And this way you're going to see our content. So let's talk about the 3 criteria. The first criteria is the lash artist speed, how quickly you work. The second one is actually what kind of sets you are doing. And the third criteria is your environment. The environment is the hardest one. All the lash artists are always like, oh my god, the environment, what do I do? I don't know how to control it. I'm ready to give up. Well, I'll give you guys some tricks and tips, and hopefully be sure to watch until the end. Hopefully you find this effective and useful, and you're able to apply it to your work. So let's get into it. The first one. So the first criteria you should think about when you're picking an adhesive is how fast do you work as a lash artist. So often a mistake that happens is the lash artist is a beginner lash artist, and they want to be advanced, and so they think that if they pick an adhesive that is faster working, it will make their work better. But it's actually quite the opposite, because what's going to happen is that your adhesive will cure before you have a chance to isolate and put that the lash extension on the client's lash. And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to have poor retention. All your clients are going to come back and say, oh, my lashes are falling out. So huge mistake, don't do that. And then the other mistake is thinking that the faster your glue is, the better you are as a lash artist. That's also not necessarily true, because there's many lash artists that are slower in their work, but it doesn't necessarily make them bad. It's just their way of doing things. There's many really good lash artists that just like to take their time, and so it will add an extra 15-20 minutes to their set, but their set is going to be flawless because they really like to take their time. They like to kind of be relaxed. They don't like to rush, and that's fine. Everyone's different. Some people, some artists like to be quick, and then there's others that like to take their time, even when they're really experienced. So just keep that in mind as a factor as well. So you really should think about, how quickly do you work, and then you can pick the correct speed of the adhesive for you. So the other aspect to consider when it comes to speed is, are you the type of artist that will first isolate the lash, then dip your adhesive, your lash extension into the adhesive, and then with your other hand you're holding the isolation and then apply the lash extension? Or are you the kind of lash artist that actually first dips the lash extension into the adhesive and then isolates? So if you are from the second, you do the second technique, then you should definitely pick an adhesive that is slower, because by the time that you actually find the lash that you're trying to find to isolate, you will your adhesive will have cured. So be sure to pick a slower adhesive if you are the second kind of lash artist that isolates after having dipped the extension. So that's something to keep in mind. And the slower adhesives are not necessarily bad. It's definitely better to start with the slower ones if you're a beginner lash artist, because it will really give you time to isolate. It will give you time to while you're working. And so just be mindful of that. Now, the second criteria we're actually going to be talking about is when you're picking an adhesive is which kinds of sets are you going to be working with. So, are you the kind of lash artist that only does classic, or are you the kind of lash artist that does classic, hybrid, volume, mega volume, or do you only do mega volume or volume? So keep that in mind as well. So the reason for this is if you're actually working with classic, you will actually um, there's actually going to be so if you're only working with classic, you're actually going to have a smaller amount of adhesive that will be on the actual lash extension. And so if you're working with mega volume, then the glue will accumulate in between the actual lashes, and that's why it's ideal for you to work with a faster adhesive that can glue faster. So the kind of sets that you actually do is really, really important when you're picking the adhesive. Because, for example, if you're working with classic, there's actually going to be a smaller amount of adhesive on the lash extension than when you're working with mega volume. If you're working with mega volume, there's going to be little droplets of adhesive that will accumulate in between the crevices of the fan, in the foot of the fan. And so you really want it to adhere as quickly as possible to the client's natural lash, as opposed to classic, where you have a little bit more wiggle room because there's less adhesive, and so it's actually going to adhere. There's more space for it to adhere. So hopefully that makes sense. Then. So that will be the kind of sets that you're working on. Keep that in mind. If you're working with mega volume sets, try to pick an adhesive that is faster. You really need one that is faster working. And if you're working with classic and hybrids or like 2D and 3D fans, you kind of have a little bit more wiggle room, and you can pick an adhesive that is more intermediate or slower. So So now the room, so then the third criteria that you should keep in mind when picking your adhesive is actually your room temperature and your room humidity. So whenever we talk about this, or this is the part that is usually the most complicated for lash artists. They're like, oh my god, how do I do this? I don't understand. It's so complicated. It is, but I think it's important to really understand the concept. Try to understand it. Don't look at your friend and ask them, oh, what adhesive are you using? What is your room temperature? What is your humidity? Because you have to understand there's other factors that are coming into play, like their speed, their technique, so what kind of sets they're doing. So really try to understand this concept. That's the best advice I can give you. So, humidity, typically if your room is really humid, your adhesive will work faster. If your room is really dry, your adhesive will slow down. So keep that in mind. Then you have to keep in mind also the range of the adhesive on the directions, whichever adhesive you pick. So most adhesive will work within a certain range, and if you are in that range, then the adhesive should work according to the speed on the bottle that it says, whether it's supposed to work at 0.5 seconds or whether it's supposed to cure at 1 to 2 seconds. So keep that in mind as well. But also keep in mind that if you are going outside of those ranges, this will change how quickly your adhesive will cure. So it's always good to have a backup adhesive that works, for example, if you have one that works in high humidity and another one that works in lower humidities. And it's also ideal to have a glue cure aid, which is like it's going to speed up your adhesive in case you run into the issue of your adhesive just being really slow and you need to speed it up. it's really good to have a glue cure adhesive as well. So some adhesives are more flexible than others, and so they will have a wider range of humidity and temperature that they can work in. And then there's others that are less flexible. So it's really going to depend on which kind of adhesive you pick. And so keep in mind that once the temperature changes and the humidity changes, for example, from winter to summer or from winter to fall, your adhesive may or may not, the effectiveness of it will change as well. So be sure to keep that in mind. And so, it's good to have another adhesive on hand for that. And just really, you have to think analytically, try to analyze your room. Okay, did anything change? Is my humidity going up? Is my humidity going down? Am I in the correct ranges? We've had questions as well. Where lash artists are like, oh, so I don't have I don't have an AC, and so my adhesive doesn't seem to be working, and it's like 100 degree heat, and it's like the humidity is like through the roof. So of course you need an AC. Ideally, you need to be able to control your environment. You need to be able to control the temperature, you need to be able to control the humidity in your environment, and so then you'll be able to control your adhesive. And you really need to understand these concepts. Another tip I will actually give you, some lash artists say, look, my adhesive, I have the correct temperature and I have the correct humidity, but my adhesive is still not working. Why? So in order for your adhesive to work appropriately, you really need to ventilate your area as well. So twice a day, if you're seeing a lot of clients, ideally really make sure you ventilate the area, because it needs fresh oxygen in order to work appropriately. So keep that in mind as well. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Let me know what's your biggest takeaway from this video, and if you guys want us to make more videos like this for you in the future, please let us know which subjects you want us to cover. As usual, we're always there for you. If you have any questions, please write them in the comments below, and you can always reach us, or you can message us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and we're always there to answer your questions.